We are having our first reveal in regards to our 7-step process in a website blueprint. And it's our first time publicly sharing about this. Why are we sharing this now, Victor?
We're seeing a lot of value in terms of the client, what the clients are getting out of it. And also, it's extremely helpful in today's environment with the economy, with technology, with AI, with all the things that are happening really fast as we speak, right? Things are changing on a day-to-day, dare I say, like hourly basis, depending on, what you're following and what kind of changes are happening around us. So this process, we've been getting a lot of feedback from clients that it's been super helpful to allow them to gain clarity.
Yeah, so that's really the driving force behind creating this framework at Ready Artwork to help our clients. So how long did this take to refine, and what kind of results have we been seeing with clients using the system?
It might be easier for the audience to understand the what first. Like, we talked about the whys, right? What it is before we talk about refinement, because website blueprint is a system we created to let clients have a better understanding of what should go into a website. Because we've been obviously doing this for a long time, right? In business for 2 decades. We celebrated 20 years. And a common theme was the clients would come to us and they would have an idea, they would have a pain point in mind. Like, I need a new website because my website looks old. I need a website because my competitors have a new website and my website sucks. So they have a general understanding of the pain points to them based on their limited understanding of what a website should be. And that spurs them to take that first step. But beyond that, they don't understand, like, a typical question is like, what's your budget, right? And then it ends in a stalemate because everyone thinks it's a negotiation tactic, right? Like, I don't want to tell you how much I want to spend. And then the other side, it's like, well, if you don't tell me how much you want to spend, how am I supposed to know what to build for you, right? So it's a back and forth. So there's the budget piece, there's the know-how, like, what should I have in the website? What do my customers care about? What does Google care about? What are some of these other issues, right? A lot of what ifs. So before even just throwing a random budget out there, and before coming up with like, this is what I want, right? There's a lot of question marks, and there's no ill intent on either side. Building it and the people requesting it, people are just, there's a lot of question marks, right? What happens and what traditionally happens is the client comes up with a magic budget based on what they can afford, and then they throw it out there, and then the developer, the website designer, will come up with a guesstimate of what it should cost. And then what happens is two things. One is the client, as they start building the website, starts now understanding what they're needing, and the project scope we call it scope creep, right? And it can harm both parties depending on how it's structured and how it's set up. So on the client side, this project can balloon in terms of budget from maybe starting at 10,000, 20,000, and all of a sudden a year later they're still building it and it's a $50,000 project and it's no end in sight, right? On the flip side, and what's more common in the small to medium size areas, is that the agency doesn't realize it, and then they end up eating up these costs. So they have internal scope creep where, well, we should have done this, we should have done that, and they end up just keep doing it, and they keep paying their people. And at the end of the project, they have actually lost money, and it becomes a really negative experience for both sides, right? What this blueprint does is it brings everyone to the table, and we go through our process to really understand what needs to be built and how do we align both sides. So, and that's the pain point it solves, really. Kind of circling back to your question, like, how long did it take to to build and refine this process. For us from day one, when we started building websites in early 2000s,
Early mid 2000s.
mid
Yeah.
2000s, right? And it's just a process of experience accumulation, right? What are those pain points? Okay, we ran into this problem with this client. How do we solve it? So we add a little process at a
Mhm.
time, right? And up until even like 5, 6 years ago, it's gotten pretty sophisticated, but it was never really formalized and put into a process, if you will. It's been a work in progress for over a decade, I would say
Right.
safely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe is to summarize in your words, how does this blueprint change the game for brands in building or redesigning their website?
It provides clarity, right? Yeah, that's first and foremost.
Hmm.
It reduces friction in terms of the budget issue. Um, it also allows people to think of their website more holistically.
Hmm.
I mentioned a couple key things, right? Um, how should I be structuring it from an SEO standpoint? Like, how does Google look at my website and drive traffic or not drive traffic, depending on how it's built, right? How is my user experience going to be? What are the pages I need? Not the pages I think I need. What are the pages I actually need for my business? So based on my business process and how my customers interact with me, what are those key steps that allow for the best user experience? Um, if I'm going to run any ads, what is the best structure that's going to allow me to scale that? Um, from an ADA, for those of you that don't know, like accessibility standpoint, can the maximum number of people access my website? Meaning that anyone with visual impairment or any other disabilities,
To be
are they able
inclusive.
are they able to access everything on my website? Not only to just do the right thing, but also to avoid costly lawsuits,
Mhm.
right? Um, so there's a whole slew of things that we need to think about, right? And what are my competitors doing, and what should I be thinking about? So these are all questions that I'm sure most people don't think about when they decide to start shopping around for a new website, right? It's
Yeah.
usually very narrow and very specific. Like, I don't like this, or I need to do this, instead of thinking about all these other things that they need to be thinking about.
Yeah. I think also the blueprint also allows the business to truly understand and merge the website to their day-to-day operation as well, which I think a lot of organizations don't think about. They see the website as a separate unit and it operates on a different path compared to their day-to-day operation. So leveraging this blueprint will really allow businesses to truly understand their marketing and sales funnel a little bit more and integrate the website into their sales funnel. What is step one and two, Victor?
So step one and two, um, we usually do a business and brand discovery.
Hmm.
So um, it starts with an interview, right? We start to understand the business, like what makes the business tick. Is there a brand, right? Before we even jump into a brand, is there a brand that exists, right? How long the business has been around? How do people perceive the brand? Um, what are things that we need to think about? Are there certain brand guidelines, like colors, fonts, things that we need to really think about? But at the end of the day, is trying to understand everything about the business,
Hmm.
right? Process, the customer experience, um, what are things that make them unique,
Right,
right?
right.
We call it value proposition.
Mhm.
So a lot of people don't think about it. They just, well, I started a business, or I'm running a business, or I'm marketing a business, and this is what we do. So they have an understanding of what they do and who buys it, but a lot of times they don't step back and understand why customers buy from them.
Hmm.
What makes them different from their competitors, and if they're in business and people are paying for their products and services, there is a differentiator, but people don't think about it, right? And so we want to dive deep and truly understand it, other than just a general description of what they're delivering,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the other piece is once we understand who they are and why people do business with them, we ask for a list of their top competitors. So usually businesses are pretty aware of who their top competitors are and who they compare themselves to. And we go in and try to do a deep dive and understand as much as we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aside from what they know, like they know who works there,
Mm-hmm.
who their customers are, but on from a website perspective, what are they doing right? What are they not doing right? What are the opportunities? From a digital footprint perspective, like, or do they own keywords? Are people finding them through certain avenues? Are they running online advertising?
How
Are
much
they
are they
doing
spending?
right? How much are they spending? Are they doing good in social, right? And so that we kind of go out and survey the environment to understand, okay, so this is who your competitors are. And sometimes we even discover that, there's actually a stronger competitor if you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the digital space that they weren't even aware of. So sometimes through this process, we'll discover those as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also look at from the competitors, we're able to see some of the tech stacks that they might be using. And we also want to understand the business's tech stack as well. So earlier I mentioned we want to integrate the business, right? They might be using a CRM that could be integrated to their website.
Yeah, tech stacks are important. So that's usually like in the following step for competitor analysis, right? We and let me just clarify for the audience what's tech stack, right? So when you build a website, typically we would build in WordPress or Shopify, depending on, I'm sure you guys have heard of these platforms, right? That's considered one piece of a tech stack.
Mm-hmm.
But within that, there are heat map tracking, right? That you can install to track the when traffic comes to your website. What are they doing? Are they scrolling? Are they clicking? Google Analytics, right? Are they tracking data of the users? You mentioned CRM, like customer relationship management software, like are they tracking those things, right? Um, so sometimes by looking at a competitor's tech stack, you can tell how sophisticated or not sophisticated they are,
Mm-hmm.
right? From a digital standpoint. And most of our customers, not all, but I say majority of our customers are unaware of these tech stacks and what it actually means,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they have 10 things, and are they top tier products? Are they good products? Or like, are they just tech stacks that got integrated because someone threw together a template that had all these things installed in them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
are they using them? Are they doing ads? Are they doing all these things? So there's a lot we can learn just by looking into tech stacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so going to that was step one and two, right? And then going to step three,
Mm-hmm.
we review the competitor analysis report with the client based off
Right.
of what we collect from step one and two. So, what
Mm-hmm.
does this competitor analysis report give insights to for the client?
So we kind of touched on it already, like, obviously tech stacks, but, how well are they doing? Do they have traffic? Do they not have traffic? And what is their strategy? Like when it comes to online, right? Sometimes we'll discover that, hey, your playing field is not that sophisticated.
Mhm.
So if we set it up properly, you'll have easy wins, right?
Right.
Or sometimes we'll find a very typical scenario is like maybe out of three competitors, one is very, very strong and they might be a big player, right?
Mhm.
And so looking at them, what are things that they're good at and strong at? What are things they're weak at? And how can we build a strategy that is most successful, right?
Mhm.
We don't want to try to beat them at something they're strongest at,
Mhm.
but maybe exploit something that they're not doing well, or maybe exploit something that they're overseeing, they're overlooking, not overseeing,
Mhm.
they're overlooking.
Right.
And let's build a strategy kind of circumvent the big players, right? Is
Hmm.
there opportunity? So that's where the reviewing of the competitor analysis report comes in,
Hmm.
and that will set your strategy.
Like step four is customer journey mapping. What is that, Victor?
Mapping out what the customer journey is. So um, we workshop this with the client. Like, okay, so tell me your customer experience from the moment they meet you, right? Or maybe even before that. How did they hear about you? If it's word of mouth, how does that happen? If it's through networking, how does that happen? If it's through social, how is that happening? Right? If it's through trade shows, which is really common, right, in our industry in B2B, um, how does that happen? What is the interaction like? What are the sales people's process, right? Do they put it into a CRM? Are they just old school using Rolodex, right? And are they calling? Are they texting? Are they emailing?
Yeah.
What is that typical touch point? And then from there, how many steps does it take to get to a point where they actually purchase something,
Hmm.
right? And then not only that, once they purchase, what is that experience like after they purchase?
Right.
What is it a recurring sale, right? Is it a one-time big project and then they kind of move on, or is it something they purchase and there's an after sale service or a product that is recurring? You know, is there monthly recurring revenue, right? For example, what's the average value of an order? What's the lifetime value of the customer, right? So is it $50? Is it $50,000? Is it $5 million?
Hmm.
Um, and so we go through all these steps and try to understand what the customer thinks about,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
so we walk away from step five truly understanding
Four.
what. Oh, step four. Sorry, we go through step four truly understanding what that entire process is like in terms of when they hear about the customer all the way till becoming a customer to becoming a loyal customer and possibly being a great referral
Hmm.
for new business, right?
Yeah. To that, I think why this is one of my favorite is it, web developers and web designers will make a really nice, pretty, very well functioned website, right? But um, it it's nice to have, but you really need to understand our clients' customers on what is their stage before coming to the website and after coming to the website, because the website serves as a just a small step for the sales and marketing funnel, and really understanding the psychology behind the pre-visit and the post-visit is really important, because the strategy of your website isn't just when someone's actually just visiting the site. It's actually everything before, during, and after. And how do you win them back to come back to assist you in the whole, marketing and sales funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, going into step five. So after customer journey mapping, step five would be our sitemap planning. Um, how do we build a navigation strategy that is both user friendly and conversion focused, Victor?
So sitemap planning. So what is a sitemap, right? So we have a lot of steps. We have journey mapping, just the understanding. Sitemap is basically a high level map of all your pages, right, of your website. So what should exist um, from your homepage to your products to your about us, um, even down to your privacy policies, right? So from the most important to the least important, um, what are what are all those pages that should exist,
Mm-hmm.
and how should it flow, right? So we workshop with the client, right? And we take our learnings from the previous step, the customer journey mapping, and we apply it to the strategy of the sitemap. So, a lot of people make the mistake of assuming that everyone comes in from the homepage and it's a very linear like journey, right? They come to my homepage, they learn about me, and then they go to my products and then they fill out the form and then they buy something,
Hmm.
right? And that is one possible way. And it's true that for a majority of websites, majority of the traffic, over 50% of traffic typically comes in for the homepage just because we put so much emphasis on it and we
Hmm.
spend so much time on it, which is there's nothing wrong with that. But especially for high ticket customers, the conversion is typically going to happen on a services page or an offering,
Yeah.
right? Or a location. So um, understanding the product and the buyer journey will allow us to kind of build that flow in a way that's going to maximize how the users purchase, how the users learn about the product and the company, and how they become customers, and even post purchase,
Right.
right? If there's any pain points or friction, right?
Mhm.
If whatever they purchase is not working as intended, or if they're trying to get more information after they made a purchase, right?
Mhm.
What are some of those pages that should exist to help service those customers that continue to build that loyalty? So these are all things we take into consideration when we're in this step of sitemap planning,
Mhm.
right? So it
Yeah.
should give you a bird's eye view of all the pages that should exist, and it should give you a bird's eye view of a map of how users are going to be flowing on your website.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Step six. I think this is a good step for clients that are more visual. Wireframes. So, what happens in this review, and how do clients benefit from seeing a structure before the design using a wireframe?
Okay, so and this will the wireframing is what is a wireframe, right? A wireframe is a map, just like how the sitemap was a map of your entire website. Your wireframe is a map of a single page, right? Think of it as imagine it as if you've seen a blueprint from architect for a building, right? A room layout plan, like boxes and where a door should be, where a hallway should be, where a bedroom should be.
Yeah.
Imagine that, but overlaid onto a web page, not a website, a web page, a single web page. So typically, we would grab, we would work on key pages, like
Mhm.
obviously the homepage, which we talked about, product or service,
Yeah.
or anything that's important to the business, right? Some businesses might have other super important pages that are maybe not product or service. So we'll identify those and we'll work on the wireframes of those pages. So it's important. This step is really important because now we're getting into actual user interface,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So user experience, how people flow once they go into a web page, how are they flowing through that? That's not part of user experience, but user interface as well. Like, so what are the functions? Is
Mhm.
there a drop down? Is there a form? Is there a search bar, right? Is there a sorting feature if you have a
Mhm.
lot of products? These are to identify all these things. And why is that important? This will help guide you into your tech stack. Like, how should I be building the website? Because and it'll also address some of the budget issues, right? The previous step also does as well, right? How many pages you have, but how simple or complex your website is. This is where the wireframe will help you identify those, right?
Mhm.
Do I need a very advanced search feature? Do I need a login for my customers to, see things that I don't want the public to see, such
Mhm.
as wholesale pricing or distributor pricing, right? Um, do I want it to kind of have a live feed of certain things? So this step is super important to help you identify how complex and what you need on your page, right?
Yeah. Adding to that, I think a lot of times people also overlook their conversion pages as well. So if you're product based or e-commerce based, how does the converting pages look like? Or if you're lead gen website, how does that lead generation form look like? I think a lot of times when web designers and developers look at a website, they pay the most attention to just the homepage and possibly main category pages, but they fail to look at the converting pages because that's where you're going to really convert your customers. That's where your website's going to be working for you,
Hmm.
right? Looking at the structure, the hierarchy of those pages so that it can best convert.
So I'm going to also touch on two other points from these two. The previous step and this step are very much important to the strategy,
Hmm.
right? So as we're planning out the sitemap and the wireframe, we're taking, Google into consideration, right?
Yep.
So a typical mistake we see is like on smaller websites is they have a one-page website and then they have anchor links that kind of just drop down like a super long website. But as a rule of thumb, and this is not an SEO consulting session, but as a rule of thumb, you know, single landing pages, like a single website, so www something.com, right? That's one page, right? And then / product, right? That's a second page. So each of these page lives as Google recognizes them as one single page. And typically, as a rule of thumb, you want to have keyword focus.
Hmm.
So if you're going after a certain keyword search, right, this one page should have 3 to at max 5 keyword focuses, and they should be somewhat related. So your homepage typically will be about your general service, right? But you might have a page for each of your separate services or each of your separate products so that you can link to it, right? Because if you have one page with 50 products on it and you're trying to rank for all 50 products, it's not going to happen, right? If you think about it,
Hmm.
if you want to be ranked. So that's an important piece to understand. And how are we using it strategically? Is it going to be
Yep.
categories? Is it going to be pages, right? Same thing on the wireframe. So once you get onto the individual pages, you know, where are your H1s, H2s, H3s, images, videos, and whatnot? And how is Google going to be looking at those and categorizing those?
Hmm.
So for those of you that are obviously not, in the industry, H1's heading one, heading two. So
Hmm.
typically it's your biggest text,
Hmm.
right? And you would have to build it in a way where it's set up properly because we've seen websites that come across our desk where there's pages without H1. So you're basically telling Google that I don't have a title. There's no name for this page, right?
Right. Right.
So sorry, going off a tangent, but that's the Google side of it. The other piece is from an ADA standpoint, right? Accessibility, making sure that your structure is friendly, right? Having those H1s, H2s, H3s are gonna give people with visual impairments an understanding of the hierarchy. What is this page about? What am I learning about? What's important for me, right?
Hmm.
And setting it up properly so that you avoid issues with accessibilities, and you're also thinking about, Google SEO, searchability, visibility online. So all these are taken into consideration as you're planning your strategy for your sitemap and your wireframe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Last step, step
Hmm.
7, which is our strategic recommendation.
Okay.
So this is a major deliverable, right? What do we include here and how does it shape the next step for the clients?
Sure. So what you get out of the blueprint, right?
Hmm.
Um, you get a better understanding of how you should be thinking about your digital branding. So some people don't have any branding when they start off. Some people might have something, and some clients are very on top of it. They have everything down, right? So this should give you a clear understanding of how I should be seen online, right? Because we're trying to be seen online from a branding perspective. Your web design and development. So what are my pages? What are my wireframes supposed to be look like? What is my tech stack? Um, and in this, right, this is a big deliverable, is you should have a good understanding of your budget because obviously through these conversations, we're going to have a better understanding of what you actually need and what's important to you. We go back and forth, right? And if you say, hey, you know what? I cannot spend over X amount. I cannot spend over $50,000
Hmm.
or I cannot spend over $20,000. Whatever that ceiling is, obviously that's what you can afford, right? There's no way you're going to come out with more money if you don't have it, right? But also, what do you need, right? Even just because you have $100,000 doesn't mean you have to spend the entire $100,000 on the web project, right? So you get a better understanding of what is going to set you up for success, and how should I look at it from a budget standpoint? How should I look at it from a timeline standpoint, right? What's the expectation of timeline and budget, right? Going into tech stacks, right? Continuing on tech stacks is hosting. What is the best type of hosting for what I'm looking for? What should I expect in terms of total cost of ownership? Like, what's the maintenance look like, right, on an ongoing basis? What do I control? What should I use professionals for? Am I looking to rapidly expand and grow and scale? Like SEO, what does my online presence look like from an SEO standpoint? Search engine optimization. Am I running any ads? How should I be looking at that, right? All these other pieces, you should have a layout of, okay, now I have all the pieces to kind of proceed to the next step, right? I have clarity, how much I'm spending, how long it's going to take, what are all these other things I should be thinking about, right? So that's what you're getting. And I can add, this kind of goes back to the beginning of this conversation of what spurred it. Websites have gotten to a point where people see it almost like a commodity. And when I say that is like everyone, including GoDaddy, now has an AI build it yourself website tool where you a couple clicks of buttons, answer a couple questions, and they spit out a website for you.
Right.
Okay. So what is the difference between a $50 a month website versus a $100,000 or a bigger, like $1 million website? What is that difference, right? Because it's become so convenient. It's everything we talked about today, right? It's the strategy, it's the understanding of what you need to be successful, right? So if you're really looking to make an impact and getting a return on investment on your website,
Victor, thank you for breaking down our 7-step website blueprint. This process has been years in the making for us. So I'm proud that we're finally, get to share this with the world. To our listeners, if you're in the process of launching a new website or struggling with your current one, our blueprint might be the structure you're missing. All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in to the Raw Spotlight. Be sure to follow, share, or leave a review if this episode gave you new ideas for your business. For expert website marketing, custom website design, visit readyoutwork.com. We'd love to help your businesses grow. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.